Welcome to Choose People, Love Pets. In this episode, I sit down with Dr. Stacee Santi, a veterinarian, entrepreneur, and author of Stop Acting Like a Girl, How to Speak Up, Stand Out, and Level Up. It's a bold, refreshingly honest guide for women in leadership, and it's not just for women. It's for anyone ready to break free from people-pleasing and lead with confidence. We talk about what inspired her to write, how to ask for what you deserve with confidence, and why being direct at work is actually a superpower. It's an honest and inspiring conversation about self-respect, courage, and what it really means to stop acting like a girl. I'm your host, Dr. Brianna Armstrong, and this is Choose People, Love Pets. Dr. Stacee Santi, thank you so much for joining me today. Your book, Stop Acting Like a Girl, I honestly wish I had read sooner. So many of the things that I struggled with as a new young female leader, like the hesitancy to advocate for myself, the discomfort in asking for what I felt like I deserved, the worry about being perceived as like too much or, pushy, were laid out in this book so clearly. I'm so inspired and grateful to be talking with you today, another strong female leader who's practiced medicine, built her own company, successfully exited, and is giving us a template of how to skip ahead from the lessons that you've learned on your journey through this book. And so I want to get into it. Was there a particular moment in your own leadership journey where you realized this message in your book should be said out loud and publicly?
Yes, there actually was an exact moment, and I can remember it so clearly. I was in my app company, and I was 3 or 4 years in, and I had assembled this team, and I had engineers, and I can't remember, maybe 5 or 6 local people working for me in the stateside. And then I was hiring for a salesperson, a real salesperson. We had been trying to do the sales ourselves, the demos and stuff, just one-to-one. And I'm like, okay, competition's heating up. I need a real salesperson. I hate sales more than anybody, so I'm not very good at it. And I'm like, if people didn't want it right then, I'm like, okay, just let me know later if you change your mind. But I needed a real person. So I had an ad out on LinkedIn. This had so many applications. I was really getting into the second, third interview with this one candidate who I loved. And I had saved my money for several years to be able to afford this high dollar, 6-figure salary for this person. And they were coming back negotiating harder on me, and I couldn't believe it. And I really wanted this person to work for me, and he ultimately did. But at the same exact time, I'm doing annual performance reviews for my staff. And one by one, I always try to do them in a span of 1 to 2 days. I hate doing employee reviews more than anything. So I just bust them out. So right after, one after another, the ladies are coming in my office. We're doing their review. I mean, these are just astonishing, amazing employees. I handpicked them, cream of the crop, high producers, no drama.
All women?
All women, your dream people. Part of my reason for starting my own company is I'm going to handpick the dream team. I don't want to babysit people. I want to have people that are here that are grown ups, that know how to adult. So it was such a blessing for me. So anyways, I get to the part, well, what do you think about your salary? Where are you at? And I got anything from, I don't know, to what do you think, to what can the company afford? And it was such a stark contrast to this person I was interviewing for sales, this negotiator coming in saying, well, I'm going to actually need 4 weeks of vacation, and I'm going to need more salary. And these women who were he's a great candidate. I don't want to diminish his skill set, but these other employees of mine could hold their own any day of the week. Mm-hmm. They were not advocating for themselves. And I told each and every one of them, I said, all right, that's a crappy answer. Go home and come back tomorrow, and I'm going to ask you the same question, and you're going to answer like a man. That's what I told them all. And they came back, and they had an answer. And what I realized is I don't even know what your dreams and goals are for yourself. I don't know what a salary is that would make you so happy to be here, that I don't know if you feel like you're working for lower than you should be paid. I don't know if you feel like this is awesome. I had no frame of reference until they shared that with me and told me what their goal was. And sometimes, they came back high, and I said, well, I can't get there, but I could get here. But at least as their boss, I knew where their head was at.
Right.
And I had other women that were like, well, I would like, some stupid number low. So I knew that they needed me to help them push harder to believe in themselves, which seems to be a common problem with the women I've worked with and managed. And I've worked with hundreds of women, all the way from my career in veterinary medicine to my career in the app company. All levels. And I feel like that was a common thing. So I wrote it down, right? I'm like, all right, women need to be better at this. And if you know me, I'm always writing stuff down. I always have a notebook here of like random thoughts. And so I started writing random thoughts for women. I want to show you. I just pulled this out of my drawer while we were waiting. Like, here's an idea for an app to help teams communicate better. Here's an idea for a nightgown that doesn't suck. Here's an idea.
When did you start doing this notebook,
I've done
writing down
this
your ideas?
forever, man, forever.
Who gave you that idea?
I just got to have an outlet, man, for all the stuff in my head. And they're very hodgepodgey, but if I think of something, I better write that down. And I just keep it in I have loads of notebooks, but I started the list.
Yeah, I was just listening to a Mel Robbins podcast, and she said it was an episode about what are six pieces of advice from billionaires. And Taylor Swift does what you're doing. And that was one of them, was like, write down your ideas, even if,
They're weird and random.
Yeah, and I just saw anything, like literally anything, and she does it for lyrics, and then she'll go back and, cherry pick from her lyrics that she's written down over they'll be 2 years ago, and she'll pull those lyrics for a song she's writing today. And I just saw a TikTok from Simon Sinek, who also has like a stack of notebooks for ideas that he has, and these are really successful people, including yourself. So I think that's such a great piece of advice for people who are looking like, how do I get ahead and set myself apart and help future me out with present me ideas, and it's just like, get it down.
And these thoughts just sort of bottleneck my brain, so I can't think about probably what I'm supposed to be thinking about. So I don't know. I put them in there. I don't even look at them. Sometimes I go back and look through it, but it's a way for me to get thoughts going. But this particular thing, I started this list of things women suck at, things that, make us are a very traditional, typical girl behavior that aren't helping. And that's where I started the list. And it was pretty easy to add to the list. And so when I actually got five things down, I wrote a blog about it. And just to get the whole thing out there, sometimes I think this stuff is good enough. I would like it to live out there. And I wrote this blog years ago, and it just always sat with me. And I just kept reinforcing it seeing it reinforced in my dealings in the business world. And so when I sold the company and retired, I thought, I'm going to write a book about it.
I love it. When did you, I guess, you just answered the question, like what actually inspired you to sit down and write Stop Acting Like a Girl? And it's this list that you've made.
Well, I made this list, and you know how it goes at conferences, you can pitch sessions to the conferences, and they like you to have 4 sessions so they, don't have to, they can get more bang for their buck when they fly you out there. So I always have to pitch 4 sessions. So I threw this one on the 4th of my list. And Western Veterinary Conference agreed to let me do the session, Stop Acting Like a Girl. And some of my friends were nervous for me. They said, Stacee, the title's too hot. You're going to get slammed in the room. It's going to piss people off. I said, why? And, I had misgender issues and whatnot. And I said, well, it comes to me from a spot where my grandma didn't want me to be a veterinarian because she said I wasn't acting like a girl.
Oh my gosh.
So I'll just explain to the people that I'm not trying to say men are bad or girls are bad. I'm just saying there's a lot of typical traditional behavior you've been saddled with from the generations before us that it's okay if you want to break out. It's okay if you don't, but if you do, it's okay. So anyways, I go to this session in Vegas. There's like 300 women and 5 men in there. And oh my God, Bree, by the end, there was a lot of emotions in that audience, like
Wow.
crying and sharing. We could have gone on for hours. And of course, the one of the few guys got up and mansplained it to us all,
No
which
way.
was so funny. I'm like, dude, you're going to get hung out to dry. You need to sit down.
Oh my gosh. Of course he did.
Yeah. So it was so inspiring. And I left that session. I woke up the next morning and I called my mom and I was like, I feel teary. I'm emotional. She goes, because you struck a chord. And my mother was a high up executive for the railroad back in her day, which was totally unheard of. And she also helped me think through these ideas. And she's like, I think you're just helping women that feel like you and I did. And they're trying to push on and get to where we all are trying to go. So that's when I wrote the book. Yeah.
What's the biggest, when you were in that crowd and hearing all these incredible stories and emotions and the people that were feeding off of what you were saying and could relate, what was, or even with the book that's come out now, what is the biggest pushback you've gotten or criticism? And like, how did you respond to that?
I haven't really gotten any criticism from the women. The only criticism I think I've gotten is, the whole thing that, like, one guy told me I was off base because if women didn't, if they wanted to get ahead, they shouldn't have kids. And I'm like, dude, just sit down. Like, biologically, we are here to propagate the human race. I don't know. Like, we didn't choose it. It just is the way it is. You can't penalize us for that. So just some old-timey thinking. But the feedback I've gotten has been really like, wow, I've been feeling this too. I've been struggling here too. And it's good to know I'm not the only one.
Yeah, no, that's exactly how I felt when I was reading the book. And I was like, I wish, I started my hospital 2 years ago, and there are so many things in your book that I'm implementing already. And like, I felt validated that I was doing the right stuff. And I also feel like this isn't just a book for women. I was talking to, my dad gives talks for MBA students. He's a retired industrial distribution, like sales and VP of his company. And so he goes and gives talks to MBAs, and they all want to know, how do I get into the C-suite? And I was telling him about the chapters in your book, ask for what you want, know your numbers, stop overanalyzing, stop apologizing. Why not me? Right? And he was like, that's all stuff that like all these men in these MBA programs also need to hear. And it makes me wonder, do you think, especially with the upcoming generations, I think this is starting to become a genderless issue, that we are people pleasers and need help being more decisive and also going through hard stuff, like this instant gratification and not willing to, this work-life balance that we're, probably overusing that term, because to really like do hard work and like put in the time to be successful, like you're going to give up balance on other things to make that happen. How do you feel like this book applies to the upcoming generations that are coming into the workplace?
Oh, I think it's reaching a bigger audience than just women. I think I struggle with that a little bit when I was writing it, because one of my stepsons read it and he's like, Stacey, I need all of this information too.
Yes.
I think you should change the title. It's not just for girls. I said, but it is for girls. Like, you're welcome to have it too. But women in particular, and that from my point of view that I was writing from, we've had it a little hard. It's been a little hard for us. And if you're a guy, I think for sure take it. If you're any gender, you can take the information. But I guess my perspective, what I'm most familiar with, is my viewpoint from the seat of a woman in the business arena.
One of the things I heard you say earlier was when you were talking about the team that you had hired and how they were like hesitant to ask for what they needed or wanted when it came to a salary. The first time I really had to advocate for myself, it was so uncomfortable, and it almost felt wrong for me to ask what I felt like I deserved. And why do you think so many women struggle with that?
I don't know. I struggled with it too. And I think it's because, I guess for me, I have this need for everybody to like me, right? I have this
Mm-hmm.
need and I think it stems back to when you're in grade school and junior high. You really spend a lot of time as a girl, at least I did, caring if people liked you. If you
Yeah.
weren't, that's why when you go out in public and you see 3 or 4, let's say 13 to 15-year-old girls, they're all dressed alike, right? They're all wearing the same outfit. Just start
Mm-hmm.
checking it out. They're wearing the same style of whatever it is, the tank top, the skirt, the leggings, whatever. They're all
Like
dressed
following the
very,
trends.
yeah, similar. And I think you just want to fit in. You don't want to rock the boat. You want to always be fun and easygoing. And this gets you popularity points, right? Among other girls when you're young. And I think it's just hard for us to think about, at least it was for me, what if I rub someone wrong? And what if they think I'm asking for too much or I'm being difficult? Then that would be bad in my mind. But I have to push that boundary if I'm going to make the money I want to make and I'm going to get the shifts I want and I'm going to get the life I want. I had to get past that to be like, yeah, I'm not easy. Maybe that's right. Maybe I'm a little too much. That's okay too. I ask for
Mm.
more than everybody else. So what? Maybe I can. It doesn't make me a bad person for wanting more.
Yeah. When were you figuring this out? Like, how did you gain these skills?
Well, I learned about school when I was 25 and I looked very, very young. Like people always thought I was about 12. And they'd
Oh
said
my
this to
gosh.
me for the first 5 years of my career. Are you old enough to be the doctor? When's the doctor coming in? I had to deal with this stuff all the time. I even tried cutting my hair off real short and dressing different. And I tried so hard to look older and more mature, more confident. And because I looked so young, I had to figure out ways to get my job done, right? So I got this habit of talking very directly to people. Plus, my mother has the same habit. So I'm sure I got it from her as well. But just being very direct, almost like every employee review you'll read about me says too direct. But I don't know. It's just the way I am. And so I just started embracing that at some point and stopped treating it like a weakness and started treating it like an advantage. And I pushed myself, right? I had trouble too, for sure, negotiating for a salary. The first job I got out of vet school, I got offered 31,000 at an ER clinic.
Mm.
And I was in clinics with this guy we were still seniors and I was in rotation and he said, Stacee, you can't live off 31,000. I just got a job in San Francisco paying 65. And he's like, let's do the math. And he was like, your apartment, your car, your insurance. We go through the math. I'm like, oh my God, I can't live off this.
Oh
And
my
it took
gosh.
everything I had to call my new prospective boss and say, listen, Dr. Merrill, I would love to take the job, but I'm going to need at least 50,000 to make ends meet. And he
Mm.
said, yeah, there's no way I'd pay a new grad a dime over 33. And I said, okay, I'll take that job.
Oh
Like
no.
I'm a terrible negotiator, right? So I just learned over time. I mean, when my clinic in Durango got acquired by a corporate, it became a whole nother ball game. If you aren't assertive, you're going to get plowed over and you have to push and fight for what you want, more so than when you work for a mom and pop boss.
That's so intimidating. I feel like it would be so easy to just lay down and like not push back and not ripple the feathers. So if someone's listening who's like, how do I get the courage to do what you did and stand up for myself? What would you tell them?
Well, the first thing you have to do is be really good at your job. You can't be a shitty producer or a half-ass employee. You've got to be a great employee if you want to ask for what you want. And I think, that's you have a good work ethic. You are always improving yourself. You're taking courses on your own time. You're always trying to improve yourself. You're open to feedback. You're a team player. You're not trying to sabotage the hospital in any way or the job. And if you're doing all of these things, I think it's at that point where you can say, you know what? I'm a great employee. If I was the boss, I would love to have an employee like me that works their butt off and doesn't cause a bunch of problems. And then you go and you ask. And Literally, what it comes down to is you just have to say the words. I want this much money. I would like to be paid $50,000 a year. And I want 4 weeks of vacation. Let's talk. Literally, that's all you have to say. And then you have to kind of shut up and let the boss tell you, oh my God, you're crazy. And they might say something like, whoa, that's way out of our league. And I say, well, okay, that's what I'm working towards. So it doesn't have to happen today, but this is where I'm headed. And when you start lining it out, the boss kind of knows, all right, this person has a plan, and I'm not going to be able to just smooth over her every year.
You had really good tips and advice for negotiating, and that was one in the book, and it made me literally laugh out loud when I read it, because I have been through negotiations where I just didn't shut up and I just kept going and then talked myself down. And if I had just shut my mouth, I would have had more power. And there's a part in your book where you talk about the power of pause and how valuable that can be in a negotiation. So if anybody is looking for how do I ask for my next salary bump in a way that's going to be impactful and helpful for me, there are really great tools in your book about how to, really simple, easy takeaways of how exactly to go about that. And we just don't get trained on that stuff. And especially as women, we don't. I don't know, where men have this, secret society where they learn how to, just do this stuff.
Maybe not all men, but they just seem to not care as much if they don't get it or they're told. I don't know. It's so crazy to me. It's obviously, not being a man, I don't know exactly how they get their power there, but the other thing, too, that I learned, which was a big turning point for me, is when I became the boss and I had employees that would do this to me. I had two kinds of employees, right? The kind of quiet, never ask for anything employee. And then I had the difficult ones. I would call maybe they're difficult because they asked me to be a boss, and they asked for more and more and more. And if they were really good employees, I would go to my boss then and say, all right, Susie's asking for this much money. She's my best technician. I can't lose her. I cannot lose her. You got to help me make it work. And I would start fighting for her because I want to keep her on my staff. Or I've got this veterinarian. She's the best one on the crew. Can't imagine my clinic without her. Here's what she wants. The bosses just go to their bosses and start negotiating for more of the budget too. So that's how it works, you guys. Or they figure, if they own the business, they figure out how to keep you by moving other things around. And so if you are asking, you actually aren't empowering your boss to be able to do something for you.
Right. Yeah, ask for help.
It's kind of undercurrent set up that way. You're not going to say, I need you to go ask your boss about this. You need to just be a little bit, not a deep thorn, but a little thorn in your boss's side so they notice you.
Yes. As a boss myself, I respect my team members a little more that come to me and ask for stuff, even if it's outrageous. I'm like,
even if
the fact that you came and asked me, good for you. And I'll see what I can do. Or let's make a plan and talk about what it looks like for you to get there, right?
And don't you secretly have I'm kind of proud of her for doing that.
Yes.
Even if you have to say no right then, or you're like, oh, great, I don't have time to deal with this. But you are secretly pleased, impressed, noticed that person is a go-getter. They get a new label, right?
Yes, exactly. And it reminds me to do that for myself. If these people can do this with me, then I need to be able to do this for myself as well. And I think there's this secret power that we have in veterinary medicine right now, which is if you aren't getting what you feel like you deserve in your current role, there are a million other hospitals or companies that are looking to hire because they need people. And I think veterinary professionals don't think about that enough. I hear so many stories about people who are just being abused basically, but refuse to leave. And they're not getting paid enough. It's an abusive environment, toxic environment, but they're trauma bonded. And it's you could you could work somewhere where you're a lot happier, probably get paid more, and all you have to do is ask and advocate for yourself. But were shut. I guess it's some of it is like being shut down, but it's an interesting phenomenon. I literally have two employees that I met because they came to my hospital because they didn't feel comfortable taking their pets to their hospital because they weren't like, their pets were just not the priority. And they didn't love where they were working. One of them brought her partner with her. And I was like, oh, I see you work at a veterinary hospital. Why are you bringing your pets here? And literally within 10 minutes, the partner was like, are you guys hiring? Because she's not happy. And it was the husband that was literally advocating for her to come get a better job because she wouldn't have left. And then she gave them like, I don't know. I think sometimes it's like this, again, this people pleasing. And also I think we want to take care of each other and have each other's backs. And if we leave, we're leaving those people behind.
Yeah, I think
But
that's true.
at what point do we get assertive and at what point do we pick us? Like, choose you. And I love that part in your book where you were like, I'm becoming my own best friend. And I was thinking about, like, as I practice advocating for myself and like I respect myself more, and all of a sudden that imposter syndrome voice in my head is starting to go away, and I'm like, no, I can do this. Tell me about that process for you where you were like learning how to be your own best friend and make those steps for yourself.
Well, I think if you can start to realize and embrace the fact that your future self depends on your present self. And, the things you do, there are some things you do today that you don't benefit from directly today, but like doing laundry, right? Something stupid like that. But tomorrow, when I need clean clothes to wear, I'll be very happy that I did this for myself. So I think it's a lot of that. And when you're in tough spots, you have to ask yourself, what am I going to walk into 1 year, 5 years down the road that I'll be happy I laid the groundwork for? I think that's a lot of what I was trying to say in the book for some of that.
What were you doing that was laying the groundwork for future you? Like, how were you deciding what that groundwork would be?
I decided to quit my job. That was a pretty big one. And, I was happy enough in my job. I mean, I was making good money. I was the boss. But I was feeling like exhausted, I guess, overworked.
This was when you were practicing and running the hospital? Okay.
I was the medical director there. And, I like free reign to try ideas. I was starting to get some pushback from Mothership. They want you to conform and do everything the way they say.
Yeah.
Which I get. They can't just have a bunch of rogue people out there. But I was just starting, I don't know, I'd done it for 20 years. I had these discussions inside my head and outside my head. Like, do you have to do the thing forever to be, is that the right thing? The approved thing? You work at the job for, like, my parents were hired at the railroad when they were 20. They retired when they were, 63. Is that what we do? We go till the end at this one thing? Or is it okay to have other jobs in life? I did it for 20 years. I'm kind of done with it. I'm not excited anymore like I used to be. I've done all the surgeries. I've done the complicated cases. I was also starting to get some anxiety around, once you see things go bad enough, you start to realize like, oh yeah, you could die. You could die on the surgery table. So anyways, I had this idea for the app and I thought, what would my future self think of me if I take the shot or I don't take the shot? Like, I really had to think those things through. And I thought, why not? Maybe I can make a go of it. What's the worst thing that could happen? I could go back. What's the best thing that could happen? I could start a company and maybe it could help other veterinarians and maybe it could be successful. That would be cool. And so then I did the hardest thing, right? Which is to do something. I could have stayed there. I would probably still be working there. I live in the same town. I know all the people there. But I chose to do something different just to test the water out. And it turns out I really thrived doing that.
Were there decisions that you made that you regretted when you were transitioning and building out this business?
I mean, the biggest regrets I have are on people, the the leadership thing. I think when you're a leader, you always feel various degrees of guilt and like, dang it, I should have done that better. I let people go that I regret letting go, made
Interesting.
some
You don't
wrong
hear that a lot.
choices. Yeah, yeah.
Why did you regret
I
letting them go?
Because I read the room wrong.
Hmm.
I put my money on the wrong person. I should have put it on the other person. I made some bad choices. Also, I get a little heated sometimes, and when I was younger, I didn't always think things through clearly. So I don't know. I feel like there's a handful of people I probably should have given a second chance to. And I probably, some other people I should have fired sooner. You know how it goes. You just never know. You do your best, and that's what leadership is. You do your best. You try to forgive yourself and come back the next day and do it again this much better than the day before.
Yes.
So those are probably where my biggest regrets have been.
I've been thinking about this a lot lately about how my doctor brain is getting in the way of my leadership brain. As a doctor, if you know, there's a part in your book where you talk about realize there aren't really any bad decisions. There are just decisions that didn't result in the current desired outcome. And it reminds me of a book that I read called Thinking in Bets, which really helped me, by Annie Duke. And it really helped me put into perspective that, like, I'm just making the best decisions I can with the information that I have. And no matter what, there are great outcomes that could happen and bad outcomes. And I could do all, like, 100% best medicine, make all the right decisions. And it's a body and physiology. And there could still be a bad outcome, but that doesn't mean I'm a bad doctor or that I made bad decisions. But so often, in my doctor brain, if I refer something because I can't figure it out, or it's a complicated case and it's not straightforward, and me and several other doctors don't know what's going on, it feels like a failure, like I'm failing the client and the pet because I haven't fixed it. And I struggle with that all the time. And I have to remind myself this idea that, like, my decisions are good. And if I made a bad decision, I should think about that and learn from it. But most of the time, I'm making the best decision I can, and the outcomes are what they are. And it doesn't mean I failed. But when I think about leadership and that I'm coaching these people and I'm hiring and firing, find myself in that same battle where it's like I'm trying to make expectations clear, give people opportunities to improve. And if they don't choose to live up to those expectations and they make the wrong decisions, if I lose them or have to fire them or they're unhappy because they can't meet those expectations, it feels like a failure again, even though it's a success because we're either going to coach them up or out. And so if they're out, I succeeded by protecting my team and getting that person out of there because it wasn't going to be a right fit ever. But I have to retrain my brain to feel that way about it. It is not my instinct. And that can be really draining if I don't catch myself in that moment.
Well, I know what you mean. I think, a few years ago, I read this book, The Midnight Library, and I so wish I would have read this book like 30 years ago, which it wasn't written then. So it's this girl, and she has all these regrets. She's young, she's in her 20s, and she just feels like she's made every wrong decision she could up until this point. So she decides to end it, right? And she takes a bunch of pills, but she doesn't really get the job done. And she ends up in purgatory, it's called. It's called the Midnight Library. And it's a library infinitely long. And on the shelf, every book is her life if she had made the different decision. And she can jump in and see what that's like. And, once I absorbed that, it made me realize, like, okay, just to what you're saying, I've fired people. Just what I said a few minutes ago. Oh, I regret that I didn't keep this person. But there is such a ripple effect for not only my life, but their life on what has happened to them. I remember one time I took over the hospital from my predecessor, and he left me an employee that was a long-standing problem employee. He didn't have the courage to let her go. She was older. Everybody said, when I found myself, when we're hiring new people at the front desk, we'd say, all right, here's how we do it. just don't do it like this girl does it. She does it her own way, but we don't want you to do it that way because that's not how we like it done. But nobody would deal with this. And after about a year, I did it. I let her go. And it was awful feeling. She was a fixture. She was like a person we all loved and cared about deeply, but she was not able, after a year of coaching, able to do the job the way I wanted it. And I went to a seminar with Sean McVeigh called, Commando Conversations. And I remember talking to him after the class, and I'm like, I've got this one situation. He's like, you're going to have to pull the plug, man. You're going to have to do what needs to be done for the team. It was tough. It was so hard. I love this person so much, and she didn't have other career options in my mind. She was like 50. What was she going to do? Where was she going to go?
How'd you do it?
I just did it. I like sat her down. I said, we've reached the end of the line. You can't give the jazz hands I need at the front desk. I could have pulled out the laundry list of things that she wasn't doing that I needed her to do, but I just told her it's time to cut the cord. Like, you got to go. And I tell you what, she thrived when I let her go. She got a job at a local pet shop here. She loves dog training. She runs the dog training program for the last decade. She has more freedom to do the things she wants to do. She didn't crumble and fall apart. I had put this on her, like I was the thing that was keeping her going. I put that on me too, but it wasn't that. Once I let her off the hook, she could go and find her way. And I'm still friends with her, if you can believe this. Like, I have several people I let go over the years that I am still very close friends with. And I think it just goes to show, let your ego go. You're not in control of all of this. There are multiple other factors in play. So you can't say if it's right or wrong. It just is what it is.
The first time I had to fire someone, it was like sickening. I was so...
Yeah. It never gets
so
easier.
Hard.
No, it never gets easier. And if they're nice, good people and they just don't do the job, it's the worst.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, I've I am the way I fired, and crying so much, she started consoling me. She's like, Dr. Stacee, don't cry, Dr. Stacee. I'll be okay. I'll be okay. I can make it work. Dr. Stacee, I would never want you to be this sad about anything. And I just couldn't stop crying. I felt so bad.
No, that's so funny. Oh my gosh. I know. And I think it's like, we don't get the training that we need to like do this stuff in business, women or men. In veterinary medicine, I feel like this is just stuff you don't get trained on. But I also, when I hear from other leaders that this stuff is hard and they also had to listen to pump up music before they fired their person, and like, you're like, okay, like we're just figuring it out and we're doing it together. And it's normal to have anxiety about having those conversations because we care so much about these people, and it doesn't make it easy. But I also like,
they made choices. They made choices too that got them here. Like one time I went into the boss's office and I told him I needed a raise, and he's like, wow, we're nowhere near giving you a raise because you haven't been doing your job up to snuff. I'm like, are you kidding me? What are you talking about? And he had some good points, and I had my blinders on. I was going through a divorce. I thought I was doing everything perfectly, doing a great job. Not perfectly, but just doing a great job. But he's like, well, no, you've got this happen and this happen. I'm like, oh my God, you're right. I said, okay, I've got to refocus and realign. I'll be back. Give me a little time. And, I worked to get back to where I was. So I think about that, like the people I've had constructive conversations with, like, here's where you are. I need you to be here. Someone had that conversation with me. And, I did the things.
Mm-hmm.
So it is possible if they wanted this job, they could have done the things and stayed. They just chose not to. I have to remember this a lot when I have to let people go.
When you were going through, it sounds like some really challenging personal situations at that time when you got that hard feedback. And I think there's a lot of conversation around mental health, and I think it would be easy for people to say, like, well, give me a break. I'm going through all this stuff. And this is like a challenging time for me. How do you reconcile like trying to keep people whole and like protect their mental health, but also telling them the hard things so that they have the opportunity to grow?
Well, I think, that's a very good question, and it's not easy. The way this boss did it for me is they had taken care of me. I didn't realize he had these issues until I asked for my increased money. And I think that was appropriate for him. He was still giving me time to heal. I think, they were so good to me. They were my support system. And I don't know. I think because I was asking for something, I wasn't reading the room properly. He had to tell me. But I think he was in the spot of taking care of me. But I think, you can take care of people and still ask them to do their job. You've got to show that you care and do things for them, maybe little extra things that are outside of work things, like, make them dinner. I don't know, do something that just puts things in the bank to show human to human, I care about you. That is different than you having to do your job here.
Yeah.
And I think it's okay to say that to someone, like, let's pull you back a little and give you some time. How much time? That's personal, right? Some people say, I don't need any time. Other people will take 5 years, which isn't going to work, right?
Yes.
It's tough.
And I think that's our job. I think that's our job as leaders, is to have those hard conversations. And I think you can do it in a kind way and an empathetic
you sure
way.
Can.
Yeah. And
you got to
still
put
have
a lot of things in the bank up until, you should always, as a leader, be putting things in the bank. And I mean doing things that show your employees that you see them as a human, you care about them. They're in their own right, unique and special and valued. And then when you have to be tough, they know that you actually are coming from a good spot. That was always my strategy anyways.
I think it's really good advice, and something that our like leader listeners can take away of like how like I need to have these conversations, even if I know way too much about my team and like what they're going through, and I still have to run the business and take care of our patients and make sure everyone is safe, and like that it's a good environment for them to show up in. And that means that people, like, we need to have good attitudes when we're at the hospital and together. And I, like you said, I think there's a way to balance that and still hold people accountable in a safe way for them. I want to jump into this transition from a medical director to founder and CEO of your company. What was that transition like? As an entrepreneur myself who hopes to make that transition one day, like, I would love to hear about your experience with that. And I'm just going to stop talking because I feel like I'm just rambling. How was it different?
Well, it was so much easier. Isn't that funny?
That is interesting.
So much easier to have my own company and be the founder and build something from scratch than to take on a hospital and try to lead all these people for me, my hands, I have always felt like one hand was tied behind my back because I couldn't do all the stuff I wanted to do because I didn't own the hospital. I couldn't give everyone a raise and take a lower profit margin. I couldn't buy new flooring even though I knew we needed it and figure out. I couldn't not raise fees. I couldn't make the kinds of decisions I would have made. And so when I got into an environment where, like, wow, there's actually nothing here. I have one employee part-time. I can do anything I want. So I started to think, what kind of team am I going to build, right? Who am I hiring? And I'm going to be very, very selective. Like the Marie Kondo, is that her name? If this employee doesn't bring me joy, they're out. I'm not even going to hire them because I've done harder things. And so I just started building a team of adults, a team that I gave them the ground rules, like right off the bat. I'm not going to micromanage you. We have unlimited vacation because you have to do your job and You have to think outside the box, and there are no rules around here, so we have to do what's right for the customer. We're going to work our butts off, and we're going to enjoy life. And this was a big one for me. If you have a problem with somebody else on the team, you need to be an adult and go talk to them. I'm not going to have anyone gossiping about anybody else. We're not going to build any walls up. If you see someone that's having a problem with someone else, your job is to help them go talk to that someone else. Don't come to me, right? We're going to be adults here. And it was so amazing. It really worked. It was fun.
How did you maintain, like, it sounds like a dreams scenario and where everybody is acting like adults. And I try to instill this in when I'm hiring, and it's hard because I'm hiring like 18-plus-year-olds that are still learning how to be themselves in a hospital. So when you're managing this team of people you're asking to really step up and make those calls, like, how do you hold people accountable and maintain that when it's not going well?
So my big idea was that if I did it right, if we got somebody in this environment, which eventually I knew we would, that didn't thrive, the team would churn them out. It would become evident that this thing is different than the other things, which is in fact what happened, right? I had a couple of employees. We went to a big trade show, and these two employees the company was pretty young at this point, and we didn't have a lot of money.
Yeah, how many people did you have at this point?
Maybe I had like 10. And I went to dinner with some networking things, and I order like an appetizer for my meal. And, I'm like on a budget here. I can't even tell you how much of a budget I'm on. And then, I get home and the credit card bill comes in, and the girl on my team, the woman on my team that does the money part, she came and she goes, "Hey, check this out, red flag." And I saw that my two other employees had gone to a super fancy dinner and spent like $300 on themselves.
Oh my gosh.
Wine, oysters. We looked up, I'm like, what the hell? So I went to approach them, and they said, "Well, we didn't know there aren't any guidelines and rules on the per diem. We didn't know." I'm like, "You didn't know?" So this starts a whole thing. We have to implement a per diem budget. We have to say how much. Then I'm having discussions. How much do you need for breakfast? How much do you need for lunch? I got so irritated. I'm like, you know what? Screw that. That is not right. We all know that's not what you should be doing with this company. And I'm not going to put big rules on everyone else because these two went off the rails. So I sat them down, and I'm like, did you at any point have a funny feeling inside yourself? I wonder if this is okay. And they said, yes, we did. I said, then you knew. You knew this isn't what we do. No, I'm not doing that. No one is doing that. And I said, you're going to have to figure it out. We don't do that. Treat this company like it would be your company. When we get more money and we can go lavish, I'll let you know. You'll see me doing it. But right now, we're like sharing rooms and, I'm sewing the booth to be at the trade show. Like, they knew all this. So I set the line, and they were stressed. There was a lot of stress. Like, oh, no, we don't know what's right and what's wrong. I'm like, you'll figure it out, or this isn't the right place for you. And it worked out fine. They figured it out. They understood. But the team did call them out and say, whoa. Now, I realize this is much harder to do with a bigger team, but it is possible to treat people like grown-ups.
What do you think about, like, I also ask my team to have their, if they're having an issue with a colleague, to, like, have that discussion and come to me if that doesn't go well. But if you should first be having that conversation. And I love this radical concept of do not come to me. Figure it out. And if I need to fire someone, let me know. I guess I always thought that, like, leaving the door open for conversations if they're not sure how to do things or whatever. Did you have some level of, if you need help having those conversations, let's talk about it? Or was it very hands off? You know how to have these conversations, just have them.
No, it was the former. As we got bigger, we had this thing we did. We would once a week listen to an episode of Radical Candor. And I don't know if you've heard that podcast.
No.
We'd listen to an episode and then we'd have a team meeting about it. Once a week, we had a meeting. So I'm happy to pay you for your time to listen to the episode. Like it's go for a walk, listen to the podcast. You're on the clock. This was also part of the perks of working for me. Get your haircut, be on the clock. I don't really care. Just do your job. This was hard for people that came to work for me to wrap their head around. But they really loved the fact that they were treated like an adult. Anywho, we listened to the podcast. We have a discussion. We did this for 4 months, maybe, till we got through the whole series. And then it gave us language around, like, how do we do this? And so when they would come to me and say, I'm having an issue with X, I would say, all right, well, what are you going to do about it? What can you remember from the podcasts, like our training? What are the options? We could do nothing. We could talk to them directly. You could lodge a formal complaint to me against them. What are you going to do? And it was always, I'm going to go talk to them. Now, I did have a situation. I had to fire somebody because they were lying to another coworker about something stupid. It all came out. I was on the fringe being informed. I'm like, you guys deal with it. Like, hopefully you can convince this other employee to come clean and tell the truth. But if not, pull me in. I got pulled in. I'm like, we all know you lied. This is a problem. That is one. I tell them on the first day, I wrote a manifesto. Here's the whole thing. Here's what will get you fired at this job, basically. Here's what will make you succeed, and here's what will get you fired. I have this whole thing written like I do in my notebook. And first one is like lying. No, wait, I can't take lying. It's a trigger point for me. So I said, you did the thing. Like, I gave them a week off paid to go think about what they did and come back. And they came back and held the story. I'm like, that's it. You're out. And I hate that. I love this person. But I had to show the team too, like, we don't do that. Like, if you're going to set some cultural, psychological safety rules in your workplace, someone's going to have to hold the line, because not everybody can do that, because not everybody is in the right team.
It sounds like you gave a lot of thought to the culture you were going to build in this company. When did that happen, and how did you do that?
I mean, I started that from the get-go because of my trauma with vet med. There's a lot of tough stuff in teams and corporates. And I mean, if you can survive a vet med hospital, you can certainly start a company and build your own team.
Isn't that horrible?
It is horrible.
It should not be like that.
I don't know. It's like the most difficult job on the planet. And I can't yet find a more difficult job where you're dealing with people every day. You've got to go deal with other people's problems and their most beloved thing they have, and finances. And, it's just such a taxing job. And everybody that's in there should be making 3 to 4 times what they're making, in my opinion. And working less hours. That's another, like, I think we work way too long hours for being on the front lines like that. It's just.
Do you think that's specific to GP, or do you feel like all sectors of vet med are like that?
I think it varies. Maybe dermatology isn't as hard as ER, right? But I think, just speaking GP level, 8 hours on the front lines where you're supposed to do your charts between appointments and scarf your lunch down. In 8 hours, if I'm being nice, it's more like 10. 4 days a week, 5 days a week. It's tough, right? I think about if I was going to go back into practice and do a good job, I would need like 3 hours of appointments. Then I need an hour break, maybe 2 hours, and then I could do another 3 hours if you want me to bring my best, most compassionate self. But you know what we do? We put on this compassionate face for the clients because we kind of have to. And then we sort of fall apart together in the back and hold on to each other for dear life. That's what it always felt like to me.
Wow. And you did that for, you said 20 years.
Yeah. I mean, and I had great hospitals. I'm not saying I worked in bad places. It's just the nature of the beast, right? Think about, I realized it was a problem when I was talking to my husband one day after work. I'm like, gosh, do people just cry every day at your job? And he's a logger at log camp, right? He's like, there's no crying at log camp. And I'm like, wow, at least one person cries every day at my place, either a client or a staff member. And if you think about it, I mean, we're delivering bad news. We're
Yes.
having hard conversations. We're telling people stuff that's emotionally difficult, or we're the one crying because we, like you said earlier, we weren't able to save the pet's life or make all the decisions perfectly to make them better. We did our best. It wasn't good enough. They still have diarrhea.
The worst. That's when the metro
The
doesn't work.
worst.
You're like, damn it.
Chronic diarrhea is the worst.
Oh my gosh.
Or I had this cat. I had this cat patient, Buddy, and he had one eye and then on the opposite nose, which doesn't make any sense. Chronic nasal discharge for like his whole entire life of 12 to 13 years. Snot would pour out. And I
my
couldn't
gosh.
help him. It made me so mad.
It is so frustrating. I have several diabetes patients right now and some weird ortho stuff that I ended up referring. But I've had like multiple cases in a row now where I like haven't fixed them. And I literally had to message my mentor because I feel like I'm failing. And I'm in the process of trying to replace 2 people while I'm also doing all these cases. And I just feel like I'm not doing good enough because I'm not fixing this stuff. And of course, I just needed a pep talk. I needed someone to reset my expectations about that's not what that means, like that's going to happen. And it's just weird that so many of them are happening at once. But it does feel that way. And I think all the time about how I think GP is one of the hardest sections of veterinary medicine because we are the front lines. We're the ones breaking the news, like you said, and we're doing them with people we have relationships with. It's not like emergency where you don't know them and you're just like, we got to do this. This is the right move. It's like I've had weeks of conversations with these people about when is it the right time. And they're so sad. And I know this dog since it was a puppy, right? And or I have a client that I've been seeing for 5 years who just died of cancer. And that was crushing, because I've known, like, it's almost like a friend that I've just lost. And there was no time to like grieve that, right? I had to go into my next room when I found out that happened. So it is just so tough. And how do we make that more sustainable? And I know you're in a different phase of your career right now which I can't wait to get into about what's next for you. But where it's like you're thinking about different things, and one of the things I'm trying to do is like, how do I build a hospital where the story that we're painting is different, where we aren't crying every day and like it's fun to be at work, because we do so many really cool things. Like that's the hard part of the job, but like there's so many really freaking cool things that we get to do. And like, how do we balance it a little better so that it's sustainable and not something we get out of and we're like, how did I even do that? Right? It's I did that and it was awesome. And yeah, there were it's like like with your company, there are hard parts and things I don't love doing, but I'm going to do it because at the end of the day, this is a cool thing that I'm working on. And can I build a hospital that is conducive to that mindset? And I don't know. I'm trying. I'm working on it.
That's so good. I mean, I took a lot of these feelings you're having when I went to when I built Vet to Pet. One thing I started doing is and these are all things I wish I would have done in the clinic, right? I finally had a playground to try things that I wish I could have done in the clinic.
Yeah,
so
what were
one
the
of the things I did was every Monday, I would send a jot form to all my employees, and it would have a scale. How are you feeling? Emotional? Where are you at? It was like a 1 to 10 thing. 10 meaning I'm ready to crush it. I had a great weekend. I'm here. The other is like 1, I'm barely hanging on. And I don't need to know why you picked that score. I just was curious as to the score. And then I would say, share something if you want about your weekend. And so I get all these in on Monday. And first off, as a manager, a leader, it gave me a little snapshot into people's lives. I probably didn't know that they went to the pumpkin patch, or they went on a hike, or their in-laws were in town. I don't know. That's kind of cool. But the score was so important, because if somebody was like a 6 or lower, I knew I don't want to put more on their plate. And if someone was a 9 or a 10, I would say, hey, can you sort of help Susie out because she might need some backup this week. Because you said you're feeling great. And what we learned as a team is this ebbs and flows. And so when someone's feeling stronger, they can give a little more support to someone that's feeling less strong that week. And as someone who has experience, I've definitely had times where I'm like, I'm barely hanging on here. I feel like I could crush it today. Like, it was really nice. You're not expecting everybody to be game all the time because you are a team. Some people need to be benched a little bit, and great, like they're asking to be benched, right? I just need to catch my breath. I can't keep going at this thoroughbred pace that you want me to go at.
I literally in the last couple of months implemented what you're talking about, but on the daily with my hospital. So we have a whiteboard that's where the team comes in and they literally write down on a scale of 1 to 10, where are they that day? We started it by like asking out loud, but then we have our 7:30s and then we have our 10s. And so the times that people come in and the 10s were getting left out. So now we have a whiteboard where we get to write that down. And it's interesting. I think people that struggle more commonly are more nervous about putting that on a board. So I feel like for the most part, I've gotten really good reviews about it's just helpful to know where everyone's at so that we can help each other out.
Can you see each person's name and what they wrote?
Yes.
Oh, yeah. So my team wanted some anonymity on that.
Okay.
It just came to me because they didn't want to be perceived as weak, right?
Interesting. Yeah.
I'm a weak link, or I see that everyone's a 10 and I'm a 5. I must be a loser, Or if you see everyone's a 3, you're like, this was going to be a great week.
Today's going to suck. Yeah.
Or today's going to suck.
Yeah.
So, I don't know, though, if it's possible, depending on the size of the team. I guess this is also something you ask the team.
Yeah, totally.
What do you think about this? How would we want it?
Yeah, I think it's helping, though. I think that radical transparency about, like, where are you today and making it a safe space to say, I'm great or I'm not okay and I need help, forcing people to own up to that and be honest. I think just instills that little bit of psychological safety around, like, I need to know where you're at so that we can make sure you're supported. And so I love hearing that you did that. What other things were you doing to build your culture at your hospital? Listen to me.
Well,
at your company.
I was making it normal to eat. It's okay if you want to eat and just hang out and talk. I always feel like at the vet hospital, you show up, you start seeing clients, right? There's no time for chit chat and lingering. I think there was this saying from my predecessor, if you have time to lean, you have time to clean. That was the motto. So it's like, wait a minute, we can just linger a little.
Some downtime.
One thing I did at my hospital that I was actually thought worked really well is I shut the hospital down from, I think it was like 1 to 1:30 or something like this, which was a struggle because I had to make sure the whole lunch coordination thing is such a shit show of
every day. Yeah.
Every day. Like, I'm like, it makes you not want to eat because it's so taxing to get everyone their lunch break. But I ended up figuring out how to make that happen. And then from 1 to 1:15, I think we had this dog training place downstairs in our hospital. I bought yoga mats. I bought lavender eye things. And I shut the hospital down. I turned the phones off on voicemail, turned all the lights off, and we just laid on the mats.
Wow.
And just chill. And some people had a hard time with it, right? I have work to do. I have to get the go-home meds ready. I'm like, you're going to lay on that mat or you're going to go outside and go for a walk. Like, those are your choices. You're not going to work while we're up. Because some people tried to keep working and it just made the other people anxious that were laying there because we could hear them walking upstairs. And did it cost the hospital money? Yes. And this is what I get so irritated with the corporate about. It costs me money to shut the lights off for 15 minutes. But you know what? We all need it. Like, we feel better. And I don't have proof of it, but I can almost guarantee you that we come back with a better attitude and we can do a better job. And maybe we sell an extra 4DX test because we thought about it that offset the loss of revenue. I mean, this was always my beef with the corporates is more money. And That's why that's why it's called production, right? We're producing like a frickin' milk cow. So my dream for the profession is we start worrying less about the money and more about the humans. And if somebody can't get a 22% EBITDA, okay, maybe you deserve a 5% EBITDA because we're on the front lines. We're dying, literally dying out here.
What change did you see after you implemented the 15 minutes of silence and darkness?
It was nice. It was kind of nice. Like we knew it was coming. We knew we could just have a minute to think without having to. My strategy prior to that was pretending I had to go to the bathroom. I would just go and sit on the toilet, right, to get a break. and I also seriously, for a long time, wanted to take up smoking because smokers always get a break, And I thought, can I become a smoker and get 5 minutes break? I'm not asking for a lot, you guys. 5 minutes every 2 hours. I would like that. Maybe I just want to look at my phone. Maybe I just want to sit there and have a snack. I don't know. The other thing I did is put really high quality, desirable food in the snack room for free. Is that so much to ask for? Not the crappy food, the good food. We're getting the Reese's and we're getting the nice golden oranges, all the nice stuff that you can have, the good drinks, all free. That's what I like. A good coffee machine with the nice fancy creamers, like all the things like a nice little zen area for you to refuel.
With Vet to Pet, were you guys in person? Were y'all like all in the same?
Well, no, some of us. I had a home base office, and then as we grew, we started adding remotely, right?
Yeah. I love the Monday check-ins. I love like forcing people to take lunches. I really like the radical candor, like listening to those episodes and then debriefing them. What else? What other kind of things did you implement?
Just like more fun stuff. Like we had team meetings where each employee could volunteer. We would get a volunteer to share some life lesson, like something you would like everyone to know. And so one girl, she shared how to get out of a trunk if you get abducted. Just stuff,
That's cool.
Or
yeah.
How another girl shared when we had no idea she was deployed in Iraq and she talked about her experience there. Or if someone went on vacation and they wanted to come and use that time to share what their trip was like. We just had free time in the weekly meetings. And I had weekly meetings, not monthly meetings, which I think is a better thing.
For all 10 years, you did weekly meetings?
Yeah,
Wow.
we did. We called it a muggle huddle. Yeah.
That's amazing.
It's just, these are the things that I actually remember. And then I had big in-person events for my team, which, yes, it costs money. It costs a lot of money. I could never get my clinic to let us off for 4 or 5 days to go retreat and huddle. Like the clinic I used to work at, I own the building now. They need a new roof. They really need a new roof. It's going to have to happen. They're going to have to shut down for us to put the roof on. They can't hardly find that they're struggling to give us 3 days to put the roof on. Because what?
Would be a great chance to go to a retreat.
Not only the money, but also like the guilt, I suppose, of the pets, right? Like who's going to take care of the pets? But I have come also to realize you are not the only veterinarian clinic in the world. And you're not the only good one. And if we took a little more effort to build relationships with other vet clinics in the area, I feel like, and also appreciate the fact that people do things differently than we do. We could lean on each other a little more and say, hey, I'm closing down for 3 days. Can I send my overload to you? And in exchange, I'll do the same for you. I would like to see some of that happen. It's a cross between ego of thinking you're the only one that you're so needed, you can't leave, to financial, you can't take the revenue loss because your budget's too tight.
Or the time that you do have out of the hospital, you're with your family and like trying to manage that. Talk to me about that part for you. Like, what was it like trying to manage home life and build out a company and do a huge career transition? What was that like?
Well, I have a super supportive husband who I said, I'm going to quit my big job and risk all of our money to do this thing. And he's like, okay, I don't care. He's like, if we have to sell the house, and I'll go back to living in a double wide trailer. I said, okay, good, because it might happen. So
Wow.
he was really supportive. I'm blessed. The first husband I had, not so much, but this husband is amazing. And he said, to be honest, Stacey, you've been so exhausted at that clinic. Literally, I would come home from work at 7:00. Dinner would be in the oven. He'd have me a grapefruit vodka martini, my favorite, ready. And I'd just go sit in the bathtub for like 15 to 30 minutes right when I got home to just chill. So I didn't have to do that anymore. And I set my own hours and I traveled a ton. I worked a lot. Like, I love the work though. So I'm a workaholic in that way. I I would get annoyed when you're sitting there watching a stupid Netflix and it's like, oh, this is stupid. I could be building a new spreadsheet out for the, you know, P&L. So I did work a lot and I loved it. It was fun. So.
It seems like that was part of your drive, is you want to be busy and doing all that stuff. So, and I think that's such a good note of your partner, who you partner with in your life, in your personal life, can be such a huge contributor or brake pad for what you're going to do in your personal career.
Yeah. And the way I worked with my engineer team was we would meet on Mondays. They would build stuff out and we'd deploy on Fridays or Thursday. We got to where we'd deploy the following Monday in case there were bugs. But it was like, we called it like Christmas every day, every week. We had, because we get new features, right? Released that would help our customers. And our customers would be so excited. It would actually work. Like something we dreamt of would go into play and help the veterinarian work faster or help the pet owner be more informed or get better care. And it was so delightful to be able to do these things. That was our internal team payoff, was just releasing features and seeing them work. We were like giddy little kids.
I want to jump to when it comes to women in the C-suite. I have some stats that are interesting. In veterinary medicine, 87% of vet school applicants are women. 62% of veterinarians are women right now. But when it comes to leadership teams, only 36% of them are women. And then when you look at senior corporate executives, so CEOs, CMOs, only 16% are women. And that was a stat from DBM 360 that I found. And with your book in mind and this idea of like, we need to advocate for ourselves and be willing to like put ourselves in these positions where we can move up and ask for what we want, what needs to shift culturally, structurally, like individually, in order to see this very women-heavy industry move in that direction in our leadership roles as well? What do you think would make the biggest impact to make that a reality? It's wild to me that there's so few of us in those top leadership roles.
I think one of the things that could really move the needle is if we made it normal for everybody to take a 3-month break every year, 3 months off every year, because what this would do would be help the women when they have to have the babies. You know, there's a lot of women that it's so hard. I didn't have kids. I didn't birth kids. I have 2 stepkids, which I adore. But working with women through the years, like, it's a huge job to like grow the baby and then birth it and then get it off, get it going after you have it. And I think women, unfortunately, are still to some degree penalized for this. It's hard to be a CEO and take 3 months off for your baby. And I think, if everybody took 3 months off, and I say it's hard to take 3 months off for 2 reasons. One, you lose your effectiveness in the company, perhaps, but also you feel so much guilt in that you're letting people down, that it makes it very, I don't know, unappealing to even want to try to do that. But what if it was a norm for everybody to have 3 months off a year, and you can figure out how you use that time off? You could work less hours per week, you could split it up, or you could take it in one jaunt. But if it was normalized, and you chose your 3 months to have the baby, I think that would help immensely. That's one thing. What do you think of that?
I've honestly been thinking about this a lot when it comes to moms and career. And in veterinary medicine, it's like so freaking hard because you have all like exactly what you're saying. There's so much guilt with the cases and your patients you're leaving behind. My hospital manager right now is on maternity leave and she took the last 4 months of the year off. And I'm supporting her to do that. Like, I'm like, yes, do it. Like, you need to be there with your baby. And all the data shows that it's honestly the first 3 years that moms need to be with their babies. I'm also thinking, just like we were talking about earlier, there are expectations for the job and like what we need for people in these different roles. And then I'm like, okay, maybe is it realistic for us to ask women to do all of it all at once? Like, or is it we take time to be a mom and then we can do like focus on our career stuff when the critical period for being with our children are there. And I don't have kids either. I don't plan to have kids. So I feel like it's a little bit of me mansplaining when it comes to like, how do we support women to advance their careers, but also be moms, which is another job. Like that's a whole career.
Yeah, it's a whole other job.
You know?
Well, and for all of us, what if every single employee got 3 months of the 12 months off per year is what I'm saying. And you don't have kids. Maybe you want to go on a big trip to Europe.
Normalize
like, wouldn't this
yeah.
rejuvenate you? My manager did payroll from the birth table because none of us knew how to do it. We're like, can you get payroll in?
Oh my gosh.
And she of course was like, I'm going to do payroll real quick because I don't want anyone to go without their paycheck. This is what a great employee she was.
Yeah.
And that should not be normal. That should be like, why would we think that she's a great employee because she did that? It's just,
yes.
If every single employee had 3 months off a year, this much time off a year to use how you want. Yes, I feel like the 40-hour work week for 50 weeks a year is total BS, especially in vet med. And wouldn't this lure people in?
I know. I was just thinking that, like,
if our profession offered this, it would be like, wow, I want to be a veterinarian. A lot of people are a school teacher because they like to get the summer off.
Yeah. And like, will we see less burnout? Will we see less veterinarians leaving the profession? It's interesting because a huge proportion of the vets that leave the profession don't stay in veterinary medicine. And so something that I love about sharing your journey is like you got out of the hospital, but stayed in the profession and are still uplifting the profession even now with your book by giving women tools on how to advocate for themselves and move up. And I think it's like more of us getting into these CEO roles and like paving the way. I think it's books like yours showing us like how exactly do we do that and put ourselves in a position where we can be thought of as a leader that would be worthy of that role. Because your book isn't just about like, how do you ask for more money? It's like, how do you show up every day and be the kind of person that deserves that raise, right?
Right.
Yes. It's you have to.
And it's about how to get what you want out of life. I feel like you are really in charge of your own ship. You and you alone. You might have been put in dropped into a really bad storm you've got to get out of, versus someone else might have been dropped into the nice waters off, the island. But you are in charge of steering that ship wherever you want to go. And it's like you can do it. You've got the smarts and the know-how to do it. The special gifts you have will get your ship is going somewhere. You just got to figure out where you want it to go and leverage that. I feel like that's what the book is about.
And I love what you mentioned earlier, which is like, what's the worst that could happen? Like the company fails and I go practice again. I'm always going to have that door open for a job to practice medicine. So like, why wouldn't I try this thing that I'm passionate about and give it a go? I want to say yes to the things now and like make decisions in the hospital now where I'm like, okay, it's a little risky, but like if I don't try this and see if it helps my team do better and feel better and like showing up to work, like I'm going to regret not giving that a try. And we can always go back to the way it was, If you could go back to your younger self, the version of you that was still acting like a girl, what would you tell her now?
Identify the little voice in my head, to pick it up and to trust it. That's what I would say. is trust that little voice. Maybe you call it intuition or spiritual guidance, whatever. I don't know exactly what it is, but it is there in every single person. And if I had listened to that little voice, I could have saved myself some heartache early on, with bad choices I made.
What were some of the things it was telling you?
Well, they're more personal, like, you shouldn't be marrying this person. This is not a good fit for you. I tried to make it a fit. It wasn't. I knew it wasn't. Deep down, it took me a long time in pain to realize that was the case. So stuff like that. If I saw an opportunity, I might be hesitant, like, oh, I can't do that. I can't leave this stable situation over here to go do something unstable over there. When my little voice was saying, yes, you can. You could do it. Why couldn't you do it? And it took me a bit of time to lock in on that voice and give it the room, like give it the audience it needed, which is not to be scared of it. If it said something I didn't like, I needed to deal with it instead of bury it and then go work 70 hours a week because I couldn't stand to hear what it was really trying to say.
How'd you make that change? How'd you flip the reaction you were having to your voice?
I mean, you just go through bad stuff, right? Like I went through that first divorce, which was super traumatic for me. And I had some bad cases at the hospital that died. Things went bad. I had employee situations that I didn't handle very well that went bad. And when you're in pain, you start to realize like, okay, wait, what was really going on there? And there's this little voice inside that I was ignoring. And had I listened a little bit more and gave it the floor, I think it was trying to help me.
What's next for Stacee Santi, Dr. Santi? What's on the horizon?
This is really a boring answer. When I was on call all those years, because I look in a community where you have to take call, I thought one day I'm going to be able to catch up on my sleep. So I sleep a lot now, guilt-free. My husband, he's like, oh, we're sleeping in till 7 today. I'm like, zip it, man. I earned it. Like I've got
7.
all these hours logged for I'm just trying to do things that expand me. And I guess for me, and maybe it's at risk for a lot of us veterinary types or workaholic types, is I attached my identity to my job. And if I wasn't fixing animals or fixing teams or creating something productive for the universe, then what's the point? And I'm really trying to realize that Stacee Santi Longfellow is a whole person. And it turns out I didn't have any hobbies at all. Like if I went to a barbecue, I could only talk about pets or technology. Like I have no language for other things. So now I've taken up golf. I've spending a lot of time with my family, my parents, my friends, my kiddos, cooking, gardening. I'm just trying to do things that give myself permission to do things that are, I don't know, maybe silly or not so ambitious.
The more people I talk to, the more I hear this story of like, I only identified as a veterinarian and I didn't have hobbies. Like I hear that time and time again. And I think it's so interesting because we literally like when we hit even in high school, like we're thinking about like, how do we get into veterinary school? What do I need to do to make that happen, to become a veterinarian? And like your whole life is revolving around how do I set myself up so I can get in and be a veterinarian? And then it's literally like a cult. And then you finally get out and you're like, okay, I've dedicated my 20 years that I've lived so far to doing this thing. And if I don't do it, what have I done for the last 20 years? And or if I don't like it or like the way that it's going isn't the way that I imagined it would be. And then I think like we get really stuck because one, we're like, is this it? Like, this is all I know is this job and the way this is going. And I think there's what part of what I'm hoping to do with this podcast is show people that like different hospitals function differently. And like, if you are miserable at your one location, it doesn't mean it has to be that way at another hospital. And there can be good culture environments where you can work and like enjoy the thing that you've spent your whole life trying to do. But then also that there's all these other opportunities within our industry that don't look like practicing in a hospital, which is the only thing we've been trained to do is like practice in a hospital. And you're like, this is what I'm supposed to do when I get out. And that's not it for some people.
Right. And isn't it okay to have, I had to go through this with my journey, isn't it okay for a person to have 3 to 4 careers in their lifetime? I mean, you only get one life. Do we have, who said we have to do the whole same thing the whole time? Like, I always am curious, like, who came up with this work week? Who came up with Saturday, Sunday? Oh, it was Ford because he built cars and people didn't have time to drive the cars. Did you know the work week used to be 7 days? And then because it was farming, right, and ranching. And then Ford built the car and he's like, well, no one can go leisurely driving because they're all working. So I'll give my employees 1 day off a week. Well, should it be Saturday for the Jewish or Sunday for the Catholic? So he gave both off. That's the origin of Monday through Friday. Like, it was just someone's idea. Like, it doesn't mean you have to live this whole, like, you don't have to do the whole job until you hit the retirement age, and you could get a new job if you don't like it. It's actually really fun to go try something new. Like, if you hate that, go back. Like, just have more fun with your life. If you're not having fun, you're not enjoying what you do, like, look around, because as a veterinarian, you can do so many things, so many. To be honest, I loved being a veterinarian, loved it. Thought I would end my career at 65 or 70 at the clinic, but things change. I didn't love it after a while. I made a different decision. It's okay.
What haven't we talked about that you think we should have?
I just want everybody to know that the way you are, who you are, what your strengths and weaknesses are, all of that is a complete set. You don't need to change to be somebody you're not. You just need to tap into your special skill set and use that to open the doors. And you got to be open-minded to see which doors are opening. They might not be the doors you're knocking on.
Dr. Santi, thank you so much for your time today. Listeners, if you haven't read Stop Acting Like a Girl, please do. I honestly wish I had read it years ago. It is not just a leadership book, but it's permission that we all need as women to show up fully as ourselves and lead with conviction and set ourselves up for success in the life that we want to live. My favorite quote that I pulled from the book is, "Your opinions matter, and when you share them, you are not only advocating for yourself, but for all the women coming up in the ranks behind you." And I just think it's a beautiful book. It is so helpful. And I hope that, I wish I'm going to give it to like all my friends, because I think it's just an amazing thing for people to get the insights that they need to stop holding back and move forward in their career in a way that they want to. So thank you. You are on the Accidental Entrepreneurs, right? That's your podcast?
Yeah, we had that one's we aren't still recording, but it's a great podcast if you're looking to do a startup with Dr. Ira Gordon and myself. He's so funny. He just cracks me up.
He's hilarious. I know. We've had him on the pod. Are you doing a podcast now?
I have one that I did for a while called Everyday Wonder Women, which has, I think, a collection of about 12 stories of women. Each shares their own story, which is just fascinating. We've got one of the guests on there she's an 81-year-old lady, and she holds the world record for the longest career in bareback bronc riding. Another gal, my neighbor, Susie, who rolled off a Jeep of Black Bear Pass at Telluride and came out. She's paralyzed, but alive. And she's got a fascinating story. So just some inspirational stories that show that you might feel like you're just average or regular, but you're amazing inside.
Mm.
So, and then I also have a column in Today's Veterinary Business that they're so kind to give me for my random ideas in my notebook.
What's the column called?
It's called Off the Record.
I love that. I love that. I'll link all of these in the show notes. If people want to reach out to you, how do they do that?
Can find me on LinkedIn or Instagram. I'm on all those places. Yeah.
Thank you so much. And I'll talk to you soon. Thanks for joining us on Choose People Love Pets. To support, please subscribe, like, and share our podcast. The Off Script series is all about spotlighting what's possible in our profession. New episodes drop every other week right here on Choose People Love Pets. See you next time.